Okay, so I feel like this has been a long time coming. So we have here with us the amateur exegete himself, the man, the myth, the legend. So,
Lord, whatever you want to go with.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and like what you do with your channel and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So channel. I don't do a whole lot with my YouTube channel.
Well, your blog
in the future. Yeah. So mostly I blog. I run amateurexegete.com, which is Bible stuff mostly. I don't dabble into a lot of philosophy of religion, which is your department. But every once in a while, I like to link to your stuff, and there's a few others that I like to link to. But mostly, it's just Bible exegesis, both Old Testament and New, mostly New. And then every once in a while, I dabble in counter apologetics and dealing with bad takes on the Bible, both from evangelicals and atheists. So, and the channel just has some odds and ends, marking priority, or not marking priority, but the synoptic problem videos, and the podcast is on there, too.
So what made you start blogging to begin with? Like, how did you get into it? Like, you just have an epiphany?
Yeah.
I need to start blogging now.
So a long time ago, back when I was a Calvinist, I had a blog. It doesn't exist anymore. I deleted it, and I wish I hadn't. I really wish I hadn't. I regret that. But I did a lot of theology blogging. I had a little every Wednesday. I had a Wednesdays with Watson, with Thomas Watson, the Puritan thinker, who I adored. I still enjoy him, even though I don't think there's a God. But so I blogged, and I did that for a few years. I stopped 2011 or so. And then in 2017, I thought, you know what? I want to talk about the Bible. I hadn't really talked about it in a long time. And so I registered a domain. I don't know why I came up with amateur exegete. I've thought about it, and it still eludes me exactly why I came up with that name. I think, obviously, I'm an exegete, and I'm not a professional, so I'm an amateur. But why did I put those two together? So I don't know.
It covers your back now, because you can just, anytime, if you make a mistake, and just it says amateur right in the name.
That's what I go to. I'm not a professional. You cannot blame me for this. I can say whatever I want.
Yeah. So, trying to think. So, what was your religious background like your upbringing? I know some of this just in case other people want to know.
Yeah. So I grew up a King James onlyist, independent Baptist, fundamentalist, dispensational. What else? What other little monikers could we have given it? Young Earth creationist. I went to conferences with, what John Morris taught. And of course, I went to Pensacola Christian for 3 years, and they were Young Earth creationist and King James only-ish. They were Texas Receptus only. So, King James only adjacent, I guess is what you could call it. But I grew up in a very fundamentalist church, but my family wasn't really fundamentalist. And I mean, they were, my dad believed it and my mom to an extent, but I had a pretty normal childhood. It was very uneventful. We went on vacations, and I played baseball in the yard with the neighbor kids, and, basketball with my brother. And so it was a pretty normal upbringing, but, I became a believer at the age of 9.
Mm-hmm.
Or accepted Jesus in my heart, as they say.
Yeah.
June the 7th, 1992, I believe it was. But
did you walk the aisle?
No, it was actually in the bedroom I shared with my brother. My dad took a Bible, and he went through the plan of salvation with me, and he prayed with me. And I remember it's a very vivid memory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it may be a false memory. I have a few of those. I'm always asking my mom, "Hey, did this happen?" No, that did not happen. But I remember that distinctly, and it just, Christianity became important to me, even as a really young kid. And I remember probably the age of 10, 11 writing I had this red notebook, and I don't have it anymore. I have no idea where it is, but I wrote a commentary on the Epistle of 1 John.
Wow.
I wrote a little analysis of the story of Samson and Delilah, a little treatise refuting evolution. I mean, here's 10-year-old me knowing jack squat about anything, refuting the theory of evolution. It was, I would cringe if I saw it today.
Yeah. See, I did that, but it was more like when I was younger, I was more like fascinated with the book of Revelation. So for me, it was like I was like writing in the margins of Revelation, just all this weird speculation, people, beasts coming out of the ocean. I don't know.
Yeah, for us, it was Rome, the Roman Catholic Church. So it was all about that. So we had that nailed down. We knew who that was. It was the Pope. No hope in the Pope is what they used to say. But either way, so yeah, Young Earth Creationist, King James only, dispensational. We loved Peter Ruckman, Sam Gipp, William Grady, all the big names in that movement, Jack Hyles to a certain extent. And then, so yeah, that was basically growing up. I went to public school. I wasn't homeschooled or anything like that. Thank goodness for that. Did you go public school?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. You seem like you probably did.
Yes,
yeah,
I did.
Even, yeah, dirty, rotten, even.
Yeah, I was. My upbringing was not fundamentalist at all. It was pretty much like pop evangelicalism. So,
really,
I would say because we switched churches quite a bit. So, well, I think there was like a Berea Bible church we went to for a while when I was very young. We went to like a Vineyard for a while, and we ended up like there's like a First Christian. Those First Christian churches is like I forget what movement they're. So the Stone Campbell movement usually.
Sounds
I think that's right. But so it was kind of non-denominational. We kind of settled in that. But so for me, my Christianity was more like it was real to me, but at the same time, it was kind of like I don't know. It was real to me. Like I had that. There's a little picture of Jesus picking that guy up. I don't know if you know that image. I like taped that to my planner in high school. So I was like one of those people. So it was real to me, but at the same time, like we didn't go to church a ton, and I didn't really read the Bible a ton. I don't really know how to describe. It was vivid to me in the sense of religious experiences and stuff like that. But the substance kind of came, and you've read what I've written about this before, but kind of John Piper smacked me over the head, when I was 18, 19. So that's when it really started to pick up for me. But
yeah, well, you're 29.
29, yeah.
So that would have been 10 years ago for you.
Yep.
Piper. So let's see, 10 years ago for me. What about the same time that I started getting into Piper?
Yeah.
My baptism was the pleasures of God. That radically altered my Christianity.
Glory.
Praise be. It was. I'm going to write about it in my series on reconsidering Christianity, but that book, I read it I think 2 times, and he has a chapter on election, and I always resisted that chapter, and then I read it like a 3rd time, and finally it was like, no, this makes sense, and I fully embraced Calvinism. After the 3rd time,
yeah,
it just kind of clicked.
Well, as other people have said this, but it seems like he has a very, he has a way of packaging it that kind of draws you in. Where if it was someone else saying the same things, you might be like, that's BS. But with him, it's like,
yeah, well, it's couched in this like happy joy, like God is not this curmudgeon kind of theology, and that's very appealing.
Right.
Coming from a King James only background is, you got to have your ducks in a row. God is very narrowly focused on this one single translation, and but Piper's vision was just, God does not look like a really miserable dude sitting up in the clouds. He's happy. His will is never thwarted. He's absolutely in control, and he wants what's best for you, and very appealing.
He wants what's best for you himself.
Yeah. What is the chief end of man? To glorify God and enjoy Him forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, Piper. That was Yeah, about the same time that you got into Piper, I got into Piper. That's pretty interesting. Well, you were younger than I was, but
that just means you have more wisdom.
Yeah. That's what we'll call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you, wow, that's interesting. So it wasn't until you hit about 20 that you started getting into a deeper theology.
Yeah, 18, 19, close to 20.
Did your Bible reading, was that, before you said it was kind of hit or miss, kind of, laissez-faire?
Pretty much, yeah.
But after that, it became more intense, more serious?
Pretty much, I would say that I had probably, since I was 18 or 19, have gotten through the Bible once a year, generally speaking. So it kind of varied. Like, I like I don't know how to, McShane. I don't know how to. MCHCY. I don't know. It's all Greek. I use that Bible reading plan a lot. So that was kind of like what I turned to. But yeah. Now, do you still read the Bible? Yes. Yeah. Okay, good. That's good. I've kind of at least right after I deconverted, I kind of took a little break, just kind of think through. And lately, I switched and started a new job, so that kind of disrupted my routine. Yeah. But generally speaking, yes, I still am interested in the Bible, and I still pretty much read it every day. Yeah. Well, by reading the posts when you do talk about it, you have a familiarity with the Bible that betrays that. Like you're not coming into this blind. You're obviously acquainted with it. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, my Bible reading plan is whatever I come up with on the fly. The Gospel of Mark, just over and over. That's going to be in there. But I have a little. It's backwards probably, but it's a to-do list, and on there I have listed, every morning I go through the Daily Stoic book, but then I have Ezekiel, and Ezekiel, the Psalms. I'm reading the Apostolic Fathers. I'm reading some in Mark. The Aeneid, I'm reading that. But I keep a list of stuff, and I just go through it a little bit at a time because it adds up, Yeah. But I try to be in the Bible frequently, So what's your favorite TV show? I heard it's a good one. I have a few. I think we agree on this. I don't know. This is a hard one. Yeah, sure it is. That's what she said. But my wife loves The Office, but she doesn't love it as much as I do. I would watch The Office literally every day. It would be, but there's a couple reasons for that. It's hilarious, number one. But The Office, believe it or not, got me through some really crappy stuff in my life 8-9 years ago. It really, you get to know the characters, and it meant a lot to me back then, and so it's kind of stuck with me. But yeah, The Office, my goodness. So good. I feel like we probably shouldn't nerd out about that too long, because I feel like it's gonna go. It's gonna go. No. It's not supposed to be about that. So, do you listen to the Office Ladies podcast? I have not yet, but I think my wife has listened to maybe at least one or two of them. You need to. It's really good. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, it's hilarious, and it's just because my favorite episodes are not in the first 3 seasons. It's seasons 4 and following, Yeah. They're in the first few seasons, and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I need to go back and watch this. And now I'm like, I'm in love with the first few seasons again. So it's just good. Good stuff. I love The Office. Ooh. Let's see. Trying to steer this back. All right. So, and also too, if this can be like I'm kind of interviewing you, but we haven't actually talked in person before, so no, man, this is first for us. Yeah. So if you, whatever questions you have for me, just whatever they pop up. I do have a question for you. Sure. Number one, how dare you? Who do you think you are? I tried to steer this back away. I know. I'm sorry. Anyway. Yeah. Toby killed a bird. I'm just saying.
We had a funeral for a bird.
So you were raised in a fundamentalist background, then you started, you kind of switched to a more, I wouldn't say moderate, I guess you could call it that, but a view of Reformed theology that was more kind of Piper-ish.
Well, yes and no. So Piper was the nail in the coffin for Calvinism, but I had been attending a Presbyterian church.
Right.
So they're Reformed, and they were Calvinists, well, mostly. The leadership, like the pastor was, but like some of their elders were in the Bible Belt in Louisiana. Well, it was in Texas. Yeah. So it's Baptist country. So even if you're a Presbyterian, you're a Baptist. You have Baptist polity. You generally believe in congregationalism, even though we have a session with elders. It was a weird situation to be in. But so I'd gotten used to that. And then Piper gets me into Calvinism, and then I slowly get into infant baptism. I'm, believe that, and I became an amillennialist, even though the pastor was a historic premillennialist, which was weird for a Presbyterian.
Right? Yeah, I was gonna say,
but he was.
It's Baptist country.
But the thing is, so he went to Reformed Theological Seminary.
Oh, wow.
In Jackson, Mississippi. So he studied under, I can't remember who it was, Simon Kistemacher and some other ones, I think, who were amillennialists. But he was a George Eldon lad who was the name, the big guy in historic premillennialism. I think Piper likes him. I can't remember his name now. I probably screwed it all up. But either way, yeah, he was that. But amillennialism just made sense to me. It just, the way of reading Revelation in that way worked better than what I had previous thought. Dispensationalism is a sinking ship. Yeah. I mean, it's just hardly anybody accepts it anymore. And historic premillennialism just reeked of this kind of, not like this pessimism about everything. It just didn't appeal to me with the way I viewed God. Postmillennialism didn't work for other reasons, but historic premillennialism, I could not get on board with. But amillennialism, I thought, well, yeah, we're in the 1,000-year reign. This is what we're in. We're reigning with Christ. Ephesians chapter 2. We've been raised with Him. So I became pretty much the quintessential Reformed person.
I was going to say too, I guess switching back over to some of my stuff. So 18 and 19 kind of started reading Piper, and then I was involved. I was in the Navy from when I was like 20 to 24, but I was like helping out a Southern Baptist church plant. And so they were basically, the leadership was mostly Reformed, kind of a mixed bag. But so I was a Reformed. Go ahead. What?
Albert Mohler fans?
Yes. Yes. And others like Tim Challies and, all these people. But, so I was pretty much kind of on the Reformed. I was a Reformed Southern Baptist for a while, but then I started, as I started kind of going more and more into the culture of Reformed theology, I started reading like Michael Horton and like people from like the Westminster seminaries, and started kind of digging further into that. And I was like, paying more attention again to the infant baptism thing, because with that, the whole idea of the covenant and all that stuff, like how you structure the Bible together, in some kind of system. It's not just one thing. It's like infant baptism is embedded in a bigger picture of like covenant theology and all others. So exactly, yeah. It kind of once I think I'm trying to think of the nail in the coffin for me with that. I think there was a debate that James White had with some OPC pastor, and I thought the OPC pastor destroyed him. So usually James White is rhetorically powerful, but this guy, I think, lit him up. So
White, oh, James White, oh man,
good old James White.
Ooh, yeah, let's not. Oh boy.
Anyway, yeah. So I kind of moved into the more confessionally reformed direction kind of over time. And then I ended up the last stopping point was a PCA church.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. We were, yeah, okay. You were never OPC though, right?
No.
Yeah, yeah. Some of their stuff was pretty appealing to me, but I just couldn't go that far. PCA was pretty good. PCUSA was,
The liberals.
Compromisers. And now I'm like, hey, they're pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah. Yep. Oh man.
All right. So moving back, I think we're kind of maybe caught up in a sense. Like now we're both in this, Presbyterian stage.
Exactly,
So what exactly happened after that for you? Like,
Yes.
Both obviously not Christians anymore. So.
Yeah, no. So probably, what year is this? 2020? Around 2012. Right, yeah. Started going through some really trying stuff in my life. I ended up getting divorced. And it set me on this trajectory that I never thought would result in atheism. But it kind of started leading me down that path to question things and, to wonder about whether God knew what he was doing. So at first I was okay. Like everything was fine. Things were not what they should be, but I had faith that God knew what he was doing. But then I began exploring more of the problem of evil, of just suffering in general, and just thinking the Bible does not have the answer for this for me. So I tried more apologetics, especially William Lane Craig.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if it was not for William Lane Craig, I might still be a Christian.
Ooh.
Yeah. There was probably 6 to 8 months where I started devouring his material more. I already had some. As you know, I had started a apologetics master's degree.
Mm-hmm. The best kind of master's degree.
Huh?
The best kind of master's degree.
Yeah, the only. But oh God. But either way, so
focus.
Yeah, there's just my mind's going all these places. Conversations you and I've had today. So I started diving into his stuff, but the more I listened to him and the more I read what he had to say, the more it just felt like packaged, like it was this nicely wrapped gift with this neat bow, but it just inside it was empty. Like it was just, there was nothing, there was no substance to it. And it really, really bothered me. I just thought, if this is the answer to suffering, if it's some kind of theodicy or, like the soul building, which is really popular among many apologists, there's just so many more questions to me than answers. And so I just began exploring more and more, going down that rabbit hole. I read Dawkins. Dawkins almost made me go back to Christianity. That was bad. God delusion was not. Oof. But now I'm trying to think, about what all the steps that, because I've been thinking about this more lately. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's not easy to piece together exactly the timeline. It's so there's so much stuff going on at once. So I understand what you're trying to
Yeah, and there's all these intervening years. So you don't, no memory is a memory. It's not 100%. It's not like a photograph. It's always interpreted through your experiences. So now I've got 8 years of these experiences through which to filter this memory. So how accurate is the memory? But I just remember finally, after a while saying, I do not believe there is a God. I think theism is false. And that was not easy, because I had a very deep love for Christ. I had a genuine love for him. And it's almost like losing a loved one. It's not, what I know Christians like to say, they were never part of us. You left it and you were never really a Christian. You can't tell my heart that, because
Yeah.
I remember the feelings. I remember the joy, and I remember, just trying to hold on for dear life, and then, your heart just breaks and it's gone. And
Yeah, I feel like there's this. I feel like there's so many more people that have the experience where like it's not that they were just trying to, throw it off like a weight. It was more like they were holding on for dear life, which is what you just said.
Yeah.
And I think there's this obviously, they just want to sin or whatever. But that was, in a way, I mean, we can make fun of that, but like, it's just silly when you actually like think about, like what you just said, and my experience was similar, where it's not like, and I'm fine. Like, so I'm an agnostic. I identify as that, but I'm totally fine actually saying like, I hope Christian universalism is true.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like I don't hate, like, if I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong. Like, it's more of a thing where it's like, I just can't be consistent with myself and say that I still believe this, even if there's parts of me that like want it to be true. So again, it's like, where is the bias really at? People will say you're biased against Christianity, and it's like, no, I'm not. Like I was raised that way. Like it, there's no reason that I wanted to leave it. Really, it was just, and if anything, I'm biased in favor of that. And so, yeah, I don't know.
No, I hear that. I think that's probably where I would be if I wasn't so convinced that there's no God. I think I would probably be favorable toward this hopeful agnosticism, where you're kind of saying,
yeah,
man, really hope Christianity is true, but only this kind. And that's the main.
This kind.
It's got to be a very particular Christianity. Like you said, it's got to be Christian universalism, because every other form of Christianity has these huge, massive problems.
Yeah.
Universalism does too.
Oh yeah. There's still like, when I say I want Christian universalism to be true, obviously part of it's like my desires, but the other part is that that's the only coherent view left. It's not just that this is sunshine and rainbows and I want the sunshine and rainbows. It's that, like you just said, there's any way. So there's still issues when it comes to, okay, so all the suffering can be made worth it if it's, paid off in the afterlife. Like there's still issues there, but it's better. It's still better than the other options. So it's a combination of my desires and like a coherence issue, in my opinion. It's the only plausible option if I were to return, it seems like to me.
So it seems like you've given that more thought probably than I have. I don't think I've given very much thought to the idea of going back. There's certain versions of Christianity that absolutely I could never return to. Like I could never be an inerrantist.
No.
That's just impossible. There's no way. I could never be reformed, although the logic of the system is appealing to my brain, but emotionally it just doesn't resonate. Like it just does not work. So there's very, very particular forms of Christianity, but I haven't thought deeply about that. Like I'm more of a, for lack of a better phrase, and I'll probably get some pushback for this, but I'm a very superficial atheist. Like I don't believe in God. I do not think theism is true, but I'm probably not going to argue with you about it too much. Mm-hmm. There's other topics I'd like to discuss. And so I'm not going to think about, what version of Christianity would I want to go back to in the future if I ever wanted to go back. But it seems like you've put some thought into this.
Yeah, not necessarily because I think I'm actually going to go back, but just because part of because I am doing more of I'm not an expert in philosophy of religion at all, but because that is kind of more my focus, I count it as a win to move someone from conservative Christianity to a more liberal version of Christianity. So I don't really care. Like if someone deconverts or doesn't deconvert, I don't really care. I'm more, as you know, more concerned with what I take to be fundamentalism. So to me, I've thought about it in the sense of like, okay, if Christianity is true, what is, morally and logically coherent version that I could get behind? And it would be this one, even if I don't think that maybe I would go back. I really don't see at this point how it would be, unless I just had some experience that was so transformative that I just couldn't doubt it. But I don't know how.
Yeah.
After I've already seen other people say that they have those experiences and had what I thought those kinds of experiences were before. I don't really know what that would even look like. So yeah, difficult to imagine.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, because you're always, sometimes you'll hear from Christians the complaint they'll make against atheists is, when you say, what kind of evidence would it take for you to come back? And atheists always have some kind of God writes something in the sky, something stupid. And you're like, well, come on now. I mean, most atheists would say nothing. I mean,
yeah,
and they would be perfectly consistent in doing so, I think. I mean, because a lot of atheism rests on this kind of fundamental assumption of, metaphysical naturalism and things like that. So, but yeah. I had a question I was going to ask you related to that. Goodness gracious. This is what I get for being old.
I could move on to another question if you forgot.
Oh yeah, go ahead. If it comes back to me, I'll let you know.
Yeah. So let's see. Got a couple that I wrote down. So recently you've been writing about Bible contradictions.
Yeah.
And I've asked you this, privately before, but what do you think are what do you think the most? Obviously, you can kind of finesse your way around almost any kind of supposed contradiction, right? But what do you think the most difficult ones to do that with are? In other words, what are the most damning Bible contradictions if you had to pick a few?
Yeah, well, so the first one would be, it's in Mark, I think it's chapter 12, where the Pharisees come to Jesus and they request from him a sign from heaven, which is a circumlocution for a sign from God. And he says to them that, the way the English translations will put it out, but a wicked and adulterous generation seeks a sign, but no sign will be given to it. That's what Mark says in English. But Matthew says, this is in Matthew, I think it's chapter 12 and chapter 16, but he says to the Pharisees that no sign will be given except the sign of Jonah. And the sign of Jonah, of course, is the Jonah's in the belly of the whale 3 days, 3 nights, the sea monster, 3 days, 3 nights. So the Son of Man will be in the heart of the earth. So it's about the death and resurrection of Christ. But the problem is, and so people will say, well, Mark's just not giving as full of an account. But they say that because they only know how to read English. Mm-hmm. When you read the Greek text, it's very clear that in Mark, what Jesus is doing is he's using an oath formula. And in the oath formula, literally the Greek text reads, he says, a wicked and adulterous generation seeks a sign. And then he says, if a sign is given to this generation. Now, I don't know about you, but that bothers my ears, because when I hear somebody say if, I want to hear a then statement. So you have a protasis, which is the beginning, the if clause, and an apodosis, which is the then clause. But Jesus only uses the if statement, and he uses an oath formula. And one commentator suggested that you could translate that as saying, I'll be damned if you're ever given a sign. Like, Jesus is very emphatic, no sign of any kind will be given. But Matthew writes in very straightforward Greek that no sign will be given except the sign of Jonah. And one reason he may do that is because Matthew's using Mark, right? This is pretty much standard New Testament studies. Matthew is using Mark. Matthew changes Mark's oath formula. He rewrites it. Why? Because the Matthean Jesus doesn't like oaths. In Matthew chapter 5, he says, do not swear at all, So he changes the oath formula because he has this tradition of the sign of Jonah that Jesus has to give. So he changes the oath formula, but it changes the meaning of Mark. Mark is, I'll be damned if you're going to get a sign. Matthew is, you're not going to get a sign except the sign of Jonah. Completely different in Greek. And the only reason they're not different in English is because it's hard to write a sentence with an if clause, but no then clause. So that's one that's really stands out to me. And of course, I think the birth narratives are ripe, and the resurrection narratives are ripe with contradictions. I mean, Eric Manning's post notwithstanding, I think that, you know, the number of angels is pretty telling. Where the angels are located in the story, as in each gospel, it differs. In Matthew, he's on the outside. In Mark, he's on the inside. In Luke, they suddenly appear on the inside. In John, they're on the inside, but they're in different positions in the tomb, you know, different from Luke. And so there's all these little details that don't quite add up, and you can't reconcile them. There's no way to reconcile, unless you're Matt Slick. Matt Slick says 5 angels at the tomb, I think. Like he's got to have a new angel for every single thing. So he's got like 4 or 5 angels. But you know, there's no way to reconcile those easily. Or even the burial of Jesus himself. I mean, in John, who goes to bury Jesus? Well, we know from the synoptics it's Joseph of Arimathea. But in the Gospel of John, he adds Nicodemus. Wait, what? And when Nicodemus and Joseph bury him, they anoint him with spices. But wait a minute. In Mark, the whole reason that they had to come the Sunday after his crucifixion was because they didn't have time on Good Friday to do it. But all of a sudden, in John's gospel, Joseph and Nicodemus are able to spend that time and anoint Jesus' body for burial. It just doesn't add up. Like, it's just there's obviously, you know, these are contradictions. There's no easy answer. I don't think there's any good answer.
But it's possible that.
Oh, yeah.
I think Peter Enns said something. He calls it's possible arguments or something like that. There's something everybody was like, he's making fun of. It might have been in one of the 4 Views books where he was I think he was taking jabs at Al Mohler. Maybe, I don't remember. It made me laugh. Is all I remember.
Al Mohler needs some jabs. That's for sure. Oh. Ooh. I've seen him speak a few times.
Yeah.
Good old
Al. You mean like in person?
Oh yeah. Like back when I did youth ministry, they had the seminary that he runs has a summer camp, like a week-long summer camp for youth groups. And so I took them 2-3 years in a row. And the last meeting of the last day, Mohler gets up and talks. So we sat through that. I liked it at the time. I don't know if kids liked it, but they got the experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the contradictions. Yeah, so those are the big ones. And the birth narratives, I think the Luke's itinerary and Matthew's itinerary they don't work. They don't jive at all. And I think if you're going to try to reconcile those, you know, you've got some a priori commitments that probably need to be addressed, because those are just blatant contradictions.
Yeah, for me, so kind of tying this back around to what we were talking about before about deconversion, like the Bible played a huge role for me because it wasn't like I did doubt theism. Like I had also, you know, I feel like life experience, you know, both for Christians, people that convert to Christianity or people that deconvert, it has a way of knocking you out of your ivory tower. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I'd experienced some stuff like that as well. But at the time, you know, I was thinking about the problem of evil. It was more within the context of my Calvinism. So it wasn't like I obviously like became more open to like atheistic arguments, but at the time it was like, you know, I'd written a blog post about the fall within Calvinism and how like it just doesn't seem like it seems incoherent. Mm-hmm. So like thoughts like that, like I was having, but really the kind of the driving force for me leaving Christianity specifically was the Bible, the Bible itself. And it wasn't just contradictions. It was more like once I realized that it wasn't inerrant, and obviously you can be a Christian without thinking it's inerrant in the conservative sense. I'm not saying that. But for me, I'm naturally skeptical of miracle claims anyway. So when you have part of the thing that helped undergird my belief in the resurrection at all was that I thought that this claim was being made in the context of other claims. So for example, these miracle reports were in the context of this book that was from God, obviously. Yeah. And like there was this clear prophecy that it was going to happen. So there was all these like pillars that were supporting my belief in the resurrection and all this stuff, religious experience. So once those pillars started to fall, I started to be like, like I've used the illustration before, like if three people stood in front of me and said that like some object levitated, that these witnesses are standing right in front of me, I would not believe them.
No,
so you're telling me that you want me to believe non-eyewitness reports written decades after the fact about this person dying, rising again, and floating into the sky? Like, so the reason that was plausible to me was because I trusted religious experience, which I don't anymore. I thought, like I said, the prophecy pointing forward to Jesus was actually pretty straightforward and clear, which it's not. Not at all. And I thought that, I thought the features of the Bible more generally were in accordance with inerrancy, which they're not. And so once all of that kind of fell away, it wasn't that, like I said, it's not that I don't think Christians can be Christians they don't need to be inerrantists. But for me personally, like, because I'm already skeptical of miracle claims, those other things were helping undergird my belief in the resurrection. Once those fell away, I was just like, why believe this?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, inerrancy never played a role for me in deconversion. It was theism, just up and down. But that's interesting to hear that, because I think a lot of people that come to atheism come through this pathway of the Bible's authority has been undermined in some way, and once they become disillusioned about that, it's almost a straight shot to atheism. I mean, that's not for everybody, but I think for very frequently, that's what happens. Is they've realized there's problems, and then that's it. Their Christianity is done. When there's these other varieties of Christianity that don't, like you said, don't require it,
right?
But like
well, partially for me too is like I think I've explained. It's like once you can explain all the data with just human hypothesis, then it seems simpler to just not add the additional divine claim.
Absolutely.
So that was part, like that kind of reasoning. Obviously, like I said, I was looking into resurrection arguments, and like, the problem of evil doubts about theism did drive me. That wasn't like, I guess it wouldn't be the nail in the coffin. But I definitely was like more open-minded about like arguments in favor of naturalism and atheism once I actually started to realize that those arguments were good.
Yeah.
Undermine my Christianity further, even if it wasn't like, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Exactly. Yeah. And you only begin to realize that once you get out from under like evangelical thought, because I mean, for me, when you try to think about things like naturalism or even arguments for atheism, you never get it from the horse's mouth. You always get it filtered through somebody else, and that's never helpful. So it's always good to get out from underneath that umbrella of evangelical thought and read from the horse's mouth, so to speak, these arguments from Oppie and from Schellenberg and Wielenberg and things like that. But yeah, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, so your analogy of like you have all these pillars. I've also heard of kind of like a web, all these different things that contribute to this belief, and then slowly, one by one, it's not one doesn't do away with the belief,
right? Maybe
not even two or three, but it's just all of a sudden they begin to crumble, and you're left with skepticism or agnosticism in your case. So, yeah, I don't think people realize how complicated beliefs are. Right. I don't think they realize that holding a belief, especially belief like a man died and 3 days later was raised from the dead, is a very complicated belief. It's counterintuitive, number one. And number two, it requires, like you said, all these other things to prop it up. The assumption about eyewitness testimony, the idea that there's prophecy. I just think I think a lot of Christians take that for granted, that there's all these other, but once you start nailing them out, once you start knocking them down, one of two things happens. They're either going to follow that down to its logical conclusion, or they're going to experience cognitive dissonance, and try to come up with other ways to prop it back up. Or, well, there's maybe three ways. You could take the personal revelation route where it's, not based on historical fact, but on a personal experience.
Mhm.
And you can't argue with personal experience,
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, you can, but
it's pointless.
Yeah.
You're going to get nowhere. I mean, unless, God told me trumps everything. That's just.
I'm trying to think. Anything else I want to say about that? I don't think so. What else? So, what are your plans for future content? I think that you had alluded to something the other day with messaging.
Yeah, so I'm reading. It seems like all I do these days is read for the next season of Amateur Exegesis, and it's kicking my butt. It's just a lot of reading. I'm trying to read monographs, and I just want to have my bases covered before I really write the scripts, because I want the scripts to be entertaining as much as I can be entertaining, which is not very much, but I want them to be good, like good quality, good content, good sources.
You're saying you're not quote mining? What are you talking about?
I thought about it.
You're not just skimming books and just looking for quotes that you want? And
I went to the S.J. Thomason School of Plagiarism, and I just figured it wasn't for me. It's kind of like Trump University, but for apologists. So my reading has been just very deep. A lot of probably, let's see, average of about 150 pages a day.
Wow.
In different Pauline texts, plus translating. I'm translating through First Thessalonians, because the podcast is going to be about Paul in the first epistle. The first extant epistle that we have was, First Thessalonians. So, doing my own translation, reading the literature, listening to it read in Koine and in English, just kind of immersing myself in it, and then. Starting in January, I'll start working on some blog posts on evangelical atheist eisegesis, which people love or hate. And then I'd like to work more on Mark and Christology, and showing that Mark does not conceive of Jesus as a divine being, because I just don't think he doesn't. But you got to do the work to show it. So I want to do some more on what he means by Son of God, especially in the lips of the demons that encounter him and things like that. But the focus right now is on the podcast, because I had originally planned to launch it in October. Right. I even had like 3 or 4 scripts written, and then I read through the scripts, and I was reading some more books, and I thought, I can't do it. There's just no way. I need to be reading more of this other stuff and then rewrite the script. So I pushed it out, and it is what it is. So you've been on a blog, like you've been on fire.
I don't know. The Holy Ghost animates.
Yeah, it's something. So because you were on a kick writing about inerrancy and contradictions and what else? You had 3 or 4 blog posts on the theme of the Bible.
Something like that. Well, is the Bible God's word? No. That was one of them.
That's an easy one.
Yeah. I really liked, I just got to give a shout out though. Like you've been, I've said this before, you kind of go into the weeds and show why the harmonizations don't work. But I really liked, and that's why I kind of tried to take some of the apostates' kind of observations from that blog, and he's too modest. I keep trying to tell him to blog again, but it's like,
I don't know why he doesn't.
If he's not going to do it, I'm just going to keep taking stuff from his blog and citing him and just making posts of my own. So he's going to blog again because I'm going to make it through my blog.
Yeah, so exactly.
No, but I like the observation of because it's not enough. The point of his post is just to say that it's not enough to just throw out harmonizations, because the illustration of the flat tire, it shows that you can literally harmonize anything if you really try hard enough. And so it's not just a matter of, okay, I came up with this harmonization, therefore it's solved. Like, no, I mean, I can do that to almost anything.
exactly.
You have to weigh the probability of possibility does not equal probability, as it has been said. Yeah. So I think that those illustrations, that and the Star Wars one, I just think they were both very powerful illustrations to show kind of the folly of that approach. So that was one I enjoyed writing, and I've been trying to keep, because I've embraced the fact that I'm a popularizer, but at the same time I try to be a good popularizer. You know what I mean?
I think you do it well. I think you do it very well.
So it's easier for me to write more posts because a lot of them are short.
I was just going to say that you're pithy. You don't you don't go on these wild tangents. You're very narrowly focused, which I think is why. I mean, for me, that's why I find your posts helpful and interesting, and I think most people do too that have read them. But I think that's a gift you have, because I heard that little clip of your sermon that you preached.
Yeah.
And what year was that? How long ago was that?
Let's see. I would have been like 5 years ago, something like that.
So the mind that preached that sermon is the mind that I'm looking at right now. Like there's this consistency of your thought life, like the way you think, how methodical you are. It's you have a real gift for that. So it shows in your writing, and I heard it in the sermon. So
I'm flattered.
It's very impressive. So
in case anyone doesn't know, the only reason I'm on Twitter or blogging I was blogging before, but the only reason that this is even happening is because this guy right here found me screaming into the void on WordPress about Calvinism. I think it was the post about where I was going through the confessions. It was basically like explaining, like, it ended up in like talking about original sin and all that stuff. But it was one of my earlier posts about Calvinism, and I don't know. We started talking about that after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and so now we're here. now, so yeah, I owe you a lot, man.
No, I owe me nothing.
You just I mean, the way Christians are going to look at it is you just, by helping me, you've just now led more souls to hell. So,
Well, I do what I can for the team,
Yeah.
I'm a team player. So.
Yeah. I ate a bowl of souls for breakfast today. So.
Well, I have to cut back. My doctor said I just can't eat as much as I used to.
Yeah. Sad.
Oh man.
Let's see what else. So we've been going for about 53 minutes, probably around an hour-ish will probably be a good time, just not to make it too long.
Exactly.
So I want to try to get a couple other things before I forget. What's your favorite book Mark probably. I was gonna say if it's not Mark, then what's your second favorite book of the Bible?
It's a good question. Probably Job.
Mm.
I like the book of Job. It's complex. It's weird. It's got some crazy stuff, and God's kind of a dick.
It's a bad word.
Bleep it out. I've been trying to be careful too.
I don't care. I almost did it earlier, and I was like, he hasn't done it, so I should probably not do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, but God damn it,
Yeah. Make it PG-13, whatever. Yeah, so Job. Probably Job. I like Job. That's pretty interesting. Interesting book. Yeah. What about you? What's your favorite book of the Bible?
I mean, I've always been fond of like Ecclesiastes, but I think a lot of people...
You would be.
What do you mean by that?
I should have known. I don't even know why I bothered asking that question. Good gravy.
How do you know? What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, you philosophy of religion types.
No, I've always been drawn to it, even when I was a Christian. How different it is from Proverbs, all that stuff. Anyway, I don't want to go there.
And the same guy wrote it.
Yeah, sure. Trying to think what else. I mean, I don't know why. Like I always, when I was younger, I always liked the Gospel of Matthew. I'm not sure if it was just because there was more parables or something.
Yeah,
it seemed like there was more stories. So, Yeah, I'm trying to think. Leviticus. Leviticus is the best one.
That's a good Calvinist answer.
Yeah.
Well, kind of a good Calvinist, because it's the law. Ooh. Mm-hmm. Here's a question: favorite philosopher of religion?
Well, it's probably hard for me because, like I said, despite what people may think of me writing, like I'm still kind of wading into I've used the phrase wading into the waters of philosophy of religion. So it's hard for me to say that. I would say probably Schellenberg at the moment. And a lot of people know him for the hiddenness argument, but there's a book called The Wisdom to Doubt, which was one of the I guess one of the first more advanced philosophy of religion books that I have read, and so I guess that just stuck with me. I thought it was very good. I mean, it's one of those things where, people that are interested in this, as with many things, you're not gonna you have to read up. So when I first started reading that, I was like, like I was reading and I was like, man, some of this stuff is going over my head. But
that's me all the time. Yeah, all the time with that stuff.
Yeah, no, it was. I would say that Schellenberg is probably my favorite at the moment. I really like. I'm reading the book right now. Is God the Best Explanation of Things by Josh Rasmussen and Felipe Leon.
Oh, and yeah, I saw you. I think you tweeted about that.
Yeah, I think Felipe is really interesting. So
ex-apologist, is that what he goes by?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting dialogue. It's definitely high level, but his he's very. I think people don't realize with naturalism they have this idea of just basically physicalism, where like you can't like Wielenberg has like a kind of analogous to a Platonic realm of moral values, but like there's other stuff about like philosophy of mind. How, is it the case that there's mind that is, even if it's not a god, I guess kind of dipping into panpsychism and stuff like that. I don't want to go too far into any of that stuff, but there's options for naturalists that most people don't consider, and I've just found it interesting to see some of the stuff that he's talked about. It's kind of been eye-opening. I'm not saying I embrace all of it, but there's a lot more options for people that embrace naturalism than is normally thought.
Yeah,
so that comes out a lot in this book. So I thought that's part of what's interesting to me. So
you can write that down. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I've seen you tweet about that, and I follow Exapologist, but a lot of his stuff on Twitter is more driven toward like technology issues. Yeah. But you forget that he's, he can go there when he needs to.
Yeah, he's good. I mean, his blog is good too. I mean, he's like compiled, I don't know, what is it? There's like this list of all these arguments in favor of atheism, like 50 of them, and there's like links with like papers and stuff like that. So. I follow him too on Twitter, but his blog is interesting too. But I'm excited to learn more about philosophy of religion, and I feel like I can be open-minded about it because, like I said, my rejection of Christianity was mostly based on Bible and miracle issues, as well as doubting religious experience and stuff like that. So I feel like I can actually be open-minded when it comes to like the God debate, even though right now I would say I call myself an agnostic more as a placeholder instead of like I feel like on most days I lean slightly more towards atheism. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm hesitant to actually say I'm an atheist yet because I feel like, well, let me actually like read let me read Swinburne, let me read, so like I'm kind of in an exploratory phase with theism specifically, even though I don't think I'm going to come out a theist. I'm just going to say that now. I don't think I am, but I'm just, my reasons for rejecting Christianity weren't as explicitly theistic as maybe yours would have been. So I'm kind of enjoying myself exploring some of that. So yeah.
Well, that's good. I need to re-explore it because anytime I talk about it, I just realize that probably then I had really strong, powerful convictions, knew why I didn't accept theism, but today it's kind of on the back burner. So it's not something I regularly visit in my mind. Why don't you believe in God, Ben? Yeah. It's just not something that comes up at all to me. except for maybe emotional reactions to things. I see something in the news and I'm like, there's no God. There's but that is just so surface level. I really need to revisit it. But I got some stuff on my reading schedule, and I'm going to try to rectify these gaps in knowledge. Well, that's what they are.
Yeah. So, you have any more questions for me? I can't think of it. I think I got through most of the ones that I was going to ask you.
We got through a lot, and we talk all the time, anyways, on Twitter. So, if I have any pertinent questions, and we can always do this again. It'd be good to talk again.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying this out. I think probably tomorrow I'm going to stream with Dry Apologist. So
that'll be good.
So we'll see.
We should. Oh man, one of these days we should get. Can we do 3-way converse in StreamYard?
I'm pretty sure you can.
Because he'd be fun to talk to about his views on inerrancy. Because I know he's not an inerrantist.
No, not at all.
But I would just love to kind of talk to him, especially hearing you talk to him, because you are really good at drilling down, like really good. I see you on Twitter. You don't let anything shake you. You're just like you're like a laser man. You're like just focused. Well, me, I'm like, there's like these 20,000 things I want to talk about, and I'm just gonna hit the mute button because I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But he'd be fun to talk to about, especially because he's a Christian.
Yeah. I like to link arms with, and I'll try to get. I've already reached out to the apostate and skeptical Christian to see if they want to So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, I'm just experimenting with this. Obviously, my quality is not very good. Like I filmed the video I did on my phone, so that was better than this.
When you said your quality's not very good, was that a swipe at me? Are you swiping at me?
No, I'm saying no. I mean, like I'm using like a Chromebook with the webcam. Maybe I was talking like this.
I was talking to JB. Gosh, him from Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, we were talking. I hope he doesn't mind. We were talking in DMs about something, and he was talking about his channel, and he was hoping some of his larger followers would boost it. And so I made the joke. I said, "Wait, is this a fat joke?" That's where my mind goes. I'm just self-deprecating and and that's a problem with me. I go on tangents. You just saw this. This is
tangents are good sometimes.
No, they're not. They're not good at all. Don't lie. Okay, so oh gosh. Oh no, you already answered my question about philosophers of religion. So good. Yeah. And I've got some notes here of who to read. Schellenberg's. You said The Wisdom to Doubt, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I've got a few Wielenberg sitting around and some Oppie, but I don't think I have any Schellenberg at all. So I need to rectify that.
Yep. Good stuff.
Well, hey, thanks for bringing me on to talk.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Again, so
yeah. So
all right. Hopefully people enjoyed this. Yeah. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you.